or 10 miles north of Money, Mississippi. It was a church that had been a tractor factory the year before. Completely African American. And I performed the play, and my green room, or the place that I would go to during intermission, I had to go up the aisle and out. And Emmett Till's cousin, a cousin of Emmett Till. So I stood up to walk out. He stopped me and he said, "Hey man, I just want to tell you, I'm a cousin of Emmett Till's." And I said, "It is an absolute, and I want to tell you that you're doing a great job, but I cannot watch the rest of the show. It's too much for me." And I completely understood that, so I went back in. I went in, get a drink of water, and when I came back out, he was still standing there. And he said, "I changed my mind." I can be tougher. So he walked me back up to the front, talking to me, telling me things, and I finished the show. And again, I had a talk back, and he stood up during the talk back, and he said, "I just want you to know that I've never told anybody else that I was Emmett's cousin. And I will also tell you that there are other people in this room right now that are cousins of Emmett too." Just then, two African American women in the very back of the room stood up. One woman did all the talking. She said, "We also are cousins of Emmett Till. Our parents told us when Emmett was killed." At this point, it had been 50 years since his death. She said, "Our parents told us to never tell anyone that we were cousins of Emmett, ever. And this is the first moment that we feel free enough to share that we are." That's how deeply frightening it is and can be and was in the Mississippi Delta. Second story I'll tell you is I was doing a performance a few days later. This time I was in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, Jackson is a large town. It's a city. And so if I thought that anything like the incident I'm about to tell you would happen, I would have thought that it would happen in Marks, Mississippi. But it didn't. There I was performing, or I just finished performing at Tougaloo College. If you know anything about this, the Freedom Summer, Tougaloo College was the place where a number of black and white students met to train, right? Met to train to go out to help register folks to vote. The chapel there, Martin Luther King had spoken several times. The stage that I was presenting on, Joan Baez had sang there a number of times. And so I had just finished the show, and the very first question from the back of the room was this tall, very skinny, gaunt-seeming white minister with a collar. And he said, "I want to know if you are going to be performing this again today." And I said, "You see how much I sweat." No. Oh, well, all of the posters said that you were starting at 2:30, at 4:30, but you must have started at 2:30. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I started at 2:30. I didn't know. I thought I was told we were starting at 2:30. I assumed that we were starting at 2:30. I don't know why." And the woman who was sponsoring the show, who worked with the Methodist Church, stood up and said, "Oh, we changed the time because of the death threats."
What?
Ain't nobody tell me. You think the one person that would need to know about that would be me. I mean, think about it, buddy. I'm the only person up here, right? So later I found out, and this is what's wonderful, later I found out that the man who asked that question was Edwin King. Anyone know who Edwin King was? It's a tragedy. Edwin King, he and Fannie Lou Hamer are who ran the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and went to the Democratic Convention to say we would like to be the delegates from Mississippi because we African Americans are not allowed to be delegates. So it was Edwin King and Fannie Lou Hamer. Edwin King was best friends with Medgar Evers. The reason his face is sort of disfigured because he, along with a number of other folks, now he's white, but he worked and deeply in the civil rights movement, and he was beaten many times. Many times. He took me kind of under his wing, and he said, let me show you Jackson. You know. So we went around Jackson, Mississippi, and he showed me the places where we went to Medgar Evers' house. He showed me where Medgar was killed. He showed me where Byron De La Beckwith was hid in the bushes to shoot to shoot Medgar Evers. He showed me on Jackson State campus, right? Jackson historically black college. He showed me the bullet holes in the building and in the sidewalk where the National Guard had come. They called it a riot and they fired upon students. Now, a lot of people realize that. He showed me the state fairgrounds where after Medgar Evers was killed, the students, we were talking students of all ages, the students started to march. There's so many students that marched that they ran out of room in the paddy wagons and they put them in garbage trucks. They then took them to the state fairgrounds because they didn't have any room in the jails anymore. So they took them to the state fairgrounds, and it's the state fairgrounds where they would pin them in, and they started using Nazi tactics. And I don't use that term lightly. What I mean is, they would make the men stand against the wall, and you have to understand that it wasn't just standing against the wall. They would stand against the wall with their legs out like this, and at first, yes, that doesn't seem like it would be a tough thing to do if you're leaning against the wall, but after hours and hours and how your legs start to weaken and they beat your knees, they beat the backs of your legs, they won't let you fall. They separated the men and the women. They put the women inside this giant warehouse, much like this warehouse, right? Much like this building, but on either end, there were fans. And the sheriffs decided to start a rumor that they were going to gas them. So they started a rumor amongst these young girls that they were going to gas them, and so they left and they turned the fans on and started pumping bug killer, whatever, insecticide, right? They started pumping the stuff, and the women started to scream, and then the sheriffs opened the doors and laughed and giggled, and it was so. That's how horrific the Mississippi was. The last story I'll tell you is when I went to visit the Bryant Grocery. I was doing a performance at Oklahoma College in the Delta, and the two women that were sponsoring my show were professors at the college, and after my performance that evening, I said, you know, I'd really love to go and see the Bryant Grocery. Is that possible? And they said, oh Mike, you don't want to do that. I said, I really do, because I knew that my friend Timothy Tyson, who wrote The Blood of Emmit Till, was doing this research. I really wanted to get him a brick from the Bryant Grocery to give to, you know, as a gift to say you can do this, because he was wrestling with it. Anyway, so I convinced them, and I was with a buddy of mine. My buddy was another buddy of mine was my production assistant at the time, and so the lady said, "All right, Mike, we're gonna go, but you understand that it's dark down there." So okay, that's fine. It's completely fine. I'll be fast. I didn't tell him I wanted to get a brick. So if you can imagine, we're in a minivan, right? We're in a minivan, and we get there, and the Bryant Grocery is just completely dilapidated. It's flat now. It's not, but because white supremacy is so stubborn, the organizations that have offered millions of dollars to buy that property and memorialize it, they will not sell it. No one will sell that piece of land. Anyway, so they're driving the minivan, and we get to the store. The store is here, and the minivan is still going. Just see it, Mike! Just see it! I do see it! Can we stop? Oh, Mike! Let's just stop for a second. Just for a second. I just want to jump out, get a brick, and... So the van slowly stopped. Now, here's the thing. There's a Bryant Grocery. Say this is the Bryant Grocery. On this side, it's cotton fields. This side are mobile homes that are dark. And so I hop out of the van doors open, I leave my buddy inside, and I reach over to get a brick, and all of a sudden the light in the closest trailer comes on, and you hear this. And I pick it up and I look at that, and I turn around, and the ladies have started the van. Oh Lord, Mike! I kid you not, the van is moving. Come on, Mike! So the van is moving, and I'm like running beside the van. The doors, the house is opening. My buddy's like, "Man, get your ass in the van!" I'm trying to run, so I have to jump into the van like this and close the door as it's moving. People are still a little scared down there, I would say. Anyone else with anything? Yes?
How did you get into drama?
How did I get into drama?
Yeah.